be a doctor present at the execution, and by their presence mean that the execution can proceed, because they need the doctor to certify death at the end. So there are, in some countries, medical associations that just boycott and they refuse, and when enough doctors do that, it's actually impossible for the death penalty to proceed.
TJC has a group of people, I don't know if it's still going on, but like doing door knocking in rental flat units, talking about, basically bringing around this petition, talking about the death penalty, and like for a few months, and I regret, I feel really bad I haven't continued, but for a few months I was one of the people who would go to the rental flats to speak to families and to people about the death penalty, one by one, talking to Singaporeans. I grew up in a rental flat myself. It's like what has been described. It's very easy to get into drugs. I think, it's almost like who isn't, because it's you feel like you have to, let's say you had a very long day at work, right? So you want to just go home. Then you just want to drink a nice cold Coke, and then you want to have a cigarette maybe, But imagine the trauma or the pain that you have from work, right? But then multiply by 500. That's how much a rental flat, somebody who's living in a rental flat feels this is bills, and then Malay people say jatuh di tipe tangga, you're falling, then the stair falls down on you. You're falling down the stairs, then the stairs fall down on you, So drugs is the only thing that a lot of people can actually feel some level of relief from that. But when I speak to people who in rental flats, and actually a lot of people in rental flats, even if they themselves have been exposed to people who were on death row, they actually want the death penalty to exist, right? When you first start talking to them. But then within the course of a 5-minute conversation, something very miraculous happens, where a lot of them actually change their mind. Because you speak to them about who is actually on death row, and the circumstances that lead them to the execution, to the death penalty, and they understand that and I guess it's a moment of reckoning for a lot of people when they realize that they disagree with the state, right? That actually the people that are being persecuted, not some evil monster or something, it's actually you and me, right? So I think I guess I want to echo what the pink guy, the guy in the pink shirt said actually. Right, which is that what is it about it's choice, right? I think the big question here for me at least is choice, right? We're given this illusion that we have choice. We have the choice whether to sell drugs, and then the choice to go and die, right? To be executed. But is there really choice? When you're poor, you realize that it's not true, I think that's one of the reasons why it's so easy to get somebody in a rental flat to change their mind about the death penalty. Because they realize that actually when you grow up poor, right, you don't really have a choice for a lot of things. But this is true even for people who are not poor, for a lot of us here. You see, right, all this has been taken down by the IMDA. We don't even have a choice to know something that is different from what they want us to know. We don't even have a choice to, I'm part of this group called Workers Make Possible, right? So we accompany workers to MOM when they're having salary claims, right? So when I accompany a worker to MOM, there is no, when a worker is denied $20,000 worth of salary, for example, he is asked to go to mediation with his boss. Mediation, mediation means let's say I have a problem with Zaid, then I just say, hey Zaid, you owe me $5, and then somebody will come and say, okay he's having a bad time. It's like your boss has impoverished you, and the government is saying, okay you sit down with your boss and then strike a deal. No, when there's no justice, Like what access, what control do we actually have over our lives in Singapore? When even the things that we get to see is controlled by the state. The amount of pay that you get if you are being shortchanged by your boss is controlled by the state. What you can see on your social media is controlled by the state. What choice do we have? Right? And the punishments that we receive every day, you know, when it comes to feeling like we're not making the full amount that we are actually producing at work, when we don't feel a sense of autonomy and control over the democratic processes that happen every day in our state. The fact that we didn't vote in the death penalty, but they're killing people in our name. Like, our struggle is their struggle, right? Like, it's interconnected, and I think like, I guess like what I want to end off with is that I stand in solidarity with TJC, with Koki. You know, these people are the only ones, really truly like, who have been tirelessly, you know, doing this kind of work. We need to stand by them, and yeah, and we need to resist, right? Because in resisting, that's the only control we have, right? Like the lack of control, lack of autonomy. The way we actually regain our autonomy is in resisting. Yeah, so I think that's it.
May I say something as a photographer? So I also have my own thoughts about it and my own thoughts about that. So growing up through school, we are always, and even now for all of you adults and everybody here, we are told that the reason for the death penalty is deterrence. The rationale is that death is an effective deterrence for people to stop peddling drugs and stop trafficking and being drug mules. And there are many studies that have shown that death is not a good deterrence, and there's many numbers and there's many charts, and there have been decades of scientific and factual research to prove that death is not an effective deterrence. Sometimes charts and numbers and words from experts from high places can be a bit hard for people to digest. But I would like to share how I was able to find out on my own that death is not an effective deterrence from secondary school, having to write an essay on it. Death is not an effective deterrence. If it was, the entire skydiving industry will be bankrupt. Human beings are very terrible at coming to terms with our mortality. It is not an effective deterrence. As some other people have said already, if death is really such an effective deterrence, no one will be doing drugs at all. In fact, none of us will even get up in the morning if death was such a scary thing to us. So, to put it in such a mild way, it's a joke to think that death is an effective deterrence. But to put it in a serious way, because we are dealing with another human being's life, it's very disgusting to think that death is an effective deterrence. In my opinion, I think any person on death row, whether they really are convicted based on evidence or not, I think every death row case is criminal. I think that every case is unconstitutional. And it is really an affront to the justice system, and it's an affront to everything that our nation should stand for. I also want to echo what Adila said about choice. I am 19. I've lived here my whole life. I'm born here. And I don't have the choice to say that I don't want politicians to support the death penalty. Even once I join NS later next year, and will be given the responsibility and the choice of killing another man in the name of my nation, I still will not have the choice to tell my MP that I don't want them to continue supporting the death penalty. But even then, I have been given the choice to live my life, 19 years here. And if given the choice, I would like to continue to stay living here because I like it here. I like my country. My family is here, my friends are here, everyone that I care for is here. I have that choice. I have that privilege. But the people on death row are not given that choice anymore. They are not given that choice to see their lives play out because of one mistake, because of one action that they did. And while I have that choice, I want to use it effectively. While I have my voice, I will continue to use it. Because some people, the moment they are put in those handcuffs, they don't know if they will have the choice to see the sun tomorrow. So, yeah, that's it.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So, hi everyone, my name is Alia. So, I actually want to offer like a different perspective because I worked in the prison before as an intern, so I feel safe to say because what can you do to me? But because I think I saw my whole I was there for 3 months, and I saw from my first day onwards until the end actually, I saw the level of dehumanization happening right in front of me. And you can say that it's coincidental, but there was, I was just outside the bus stop, so I was doing my interviews and I was waiting for people to come up. So there was 5 bus stops. It was long, it was 5 bus stops worth of the length was that long, okay. So, and it was all minority families waiting for their families to come up. And then we have the prison officers, and I don't have to say what race you guys will know. Yeah, and they all come out without looking at these, minorities people who are waiting for their families. And if you ask the prison officers about whether they are passionate about rehabilitation, they will say that they are passionate about rehabilitation. But if you see what happens inside the institutions, how criminals are being talked about. So even on my first day, this happened. Alia, this is your desk. You can sit here, everything is here. Then I asked my supervisor, where are you going? And then she said, I'm going to interview some traffickers later. It was that casual that you can't, if she tells me that she's passionate about rehabilitation, I would have laughed in her face because you're obviously not. And I have, on my last day, so this happened on my first day, and on my last day, there was this, another case where we had to interview a drug trafficker. And then I was very nervous, so my job there was still to observe, so they didn't allow me to interview. But because I noticed that throughout the interviews that I have with the prisons, there was no ethics involved, even though they say that research is about ethics and also about respecting that these people, these criminals, or these people on I don't know, they are still serving their sentence, and some of them are still in their halfway house. They are not obligated to participate in a research that doesn't bring any material values to them. So research itself, right, when they talk about their experience, it's a high-risk process because before they even start, they will say that any crimes that you talk about that you are not charged with, right? So if you are convicted of stealing, but somewhere around your narrative you talk about drugs, they can still charge you as you are in prison also. So the stakes are high for them, and there's no obligation for them to participate. Yet these people participate to share their stories. But there was no ethics, and on my last day, there was this guy that came in, and it was about 12 p.m. That was our interview process. And then, I think it was 12 p.m. So I thought that, obviously you would ask them, have you eaten? Or questions like that, which is, research is about ethics and rapport, so you would expect them to talk about that. But it was just, okay, sit down. Okay, how many times have you been convicted? And then he said 20. And then they did this face of okay, moving on. Okay, what crimes are you convicted of? And this guy is listing all his crimes. So I was thinking, is this research or are you interrogating the person? And there's no way that this person could report if he felt uncomfortable, because he was uncomfortable. So that's when I needed to intervene. And I think a lot of people think that, captains of lives, that's the mission or vision of them, right? But they're captains of life because they're the one that can take lives, and it's up to them. Yeah, and because we had a dialogue sessions because they were selling us the jobs. and they wanted like people to become prison officers, and they were showing us like the money, like how much you can gain from it, you know, like this is your sign-on bonus, and yeah. So there were a lot of people that were like drawn into this, like some of my intern friends were like not at all passionate about this. They were considering this, so they are simply attracting, first of all, the wrong people for this job. If the goal was to rehabilitate, and then the second of all, when the question on death penalty came about, I think there was 3 officers, and they were saying like, why should like death penalty not be implemented? And then they kept on saying like the state narratives lah, basically. And then I think they were asking like, oh, who here is for the death penalty? And then nobody raised their hand, but then they said who is against, and then only I raised my hand, which I thought was very like troubling, because it shows that even as a student, we are not even in the labor market yet, but still we are really stressed up to talk to these people. And a lot of these prison officers, they know what they're doing, they know that death penalty is wrong, but they will never challenge the state. Because why would you challenge when you're already so comfortable with your, I don't know, few $1,000s pay, right? Yeah, so I just wanted to share like I feel like if you guys have friends, you can challenge, like I talk to my friends are all for the death penalty, so I think like it's very hard to talk to them about these things because they don't see the people. There's no face when they talk about drug trafficker or like criminals in general. Yeah, so I urge everyone to make your friends uncomfortable, even if they are your best friend, because my best friend of 10 years is still for the drug, like death penalty, and I challenge her like to this day. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll have one more from Xianglin, and then I'll wrap up, and then we'll have some time for people to write their reflections.
Hi, I'd just like to briefly echo what Kirsten said about cognitive dissonance, right? I myself am a junior doctor, and the way I see it is that it really is no coincidence as to why our healthcare system is in crisis. Right? People are rapidly leaving the healthcare system in droves. Right? Moral injury is so great, the mental gymnastics is so tiring, and the compartmentalization is so suffocating. You know, there are so many healthcare providers who want to do no harm, feel compelled to leave the system. Just as we are putting the death penalty on trial, we should also put our healthcare system on trial. It is about how it has failed in its task to heal and has in fact reinforced the harm, especially with regards to drug use. For me as a healthcare provider and as a palliative care physician who seeks to give people a dignified death, I feel so much rage when I hear about the death penalty. At the system and at the politicians and at a relentless pace at which our rights are being clawed away. If we just remain in inaction, they will not stop, not just with regards to the death penalty, but with regards to our rights, all of our rights. Whether it be about elections, our freedom of speech, or our freedom of association. Therefore, I would like to say that I stand with TJC in resisting, and resist we must in creative ways and in ways that continue to disrupt. The fight for fairer Singapore is therefore a fight for abolition, which is also a fight for freedom and a fight for the end of the death penalty.
So we're going to close the session and just a few things. So first I'm going to do housekeeping things, and then I will share some final reflections just so we don't end on logistics. And then Koki also would like to share and to close, right? So housekeeping things first. There are cards and pens in that corner under the text that says share your thoughts with us for you to write what you feel, and you can kind of stick it on the wall, right? It will stick. Yeah. And then on this side, we hope it will stick. You kind of press until it sticks. Okay. Then on this side, we have opportunities for you to sign up if you want to become a member of TJC, to join the movement, but also if you want to join the door knocking exercises of going around to talk to people from house to house. Right? There are also like pamphlets and things, and a way for you to donate to TJC and support our work. So I think I would, just to bring it back to the very emotional personal stories that we started business to kind of really emphasize the sort of trauma and emotional roller coaster that these families go through, right? So in 2018, there was a case where the execution notice had been given, and we only found out about it from the family very, very late. We only found out, I think, 2 or 3 days. So by then, there wasn't very much that we could do, and the last thing we decided to help and that his brother wanted to do was to submit a last-ditch clemency petition to the Islam, to the president. And so we submitted the petition and just had to wait. And so this was the day before the execution. It was in the evening. The brother, he works in Singapore, but he lives in JB. So, during rush hour, he's like in the jam. He had to go back to JB. It took him a couple of hours to get home from Singapore to JB. He got to JB and he got a call from the prison to say, "Can you please come? We have a letter from the president for you." And he calls me up and he's quite excited, right? Because he's just like, it will be like 9 p.m. by the time I turn back and cross the causeway again and come back to Singapore. And he was just like, surely this is good. Surely they will not call me back if it was not good. And he was so hopeful, and I felt really bad because I had a feeling of what it was going to be. And so he did turn back. He did go back into the causeway, through the queue, through the traffic jam, came back, went to the prison, was given the letter, and the letter just says the clemency has been rejected, the execution will proceed as normal. And that was it, right? That was good. They made him come back from JB to Singapore for a 2-sentence letter that says the execution will proceed as normal. And that day, a few days later, I went to Mandai Crematorium to basically sweep the prisoner's ashes with his family. And it was such a tiny funeral. It was me, his brother, his father, and his best friend. That was it. His mother had refused to attend because she had refused to accept that her son's dead. And so four of us swept his ashes with our hands into an urn, which we then brought to the Changi beach, which we then took a boat out, and we set him free to the sea. In 2016, so this was 2 years before, Coach Harbin was going to be executed on a Friday morning, but he had a last-minute appeal, which they scheduled on a Friday morning. So at the time, executions were always on Friday morning. So our assumption was that if he has a hearing on Friday morning, he will not be executed for 1 more week. But what happened after the hearing went until about noon. It was dismissed, and Jabin was taken from court to prison and hanged. He was hanged at, so it was a dismissed around noon, he was hanged at about 3:30. It was so fast that his family's last visit with him was video call. It was televisit, it was not in person. It was his sister's birthday. And in 2022, I went to visit his family in Sarawak, and his sister brought me to the cemetery, and we sat by his tombstone, and she said, "My birthday is going to never the same again." Because the major memory I have of my birthday is that was the day my brother was suddenly given. In 2022, so Nagin was executed. We went to Ipoh for the funeral. It was super crowded because the whole village came. All the Malaysian press came. It was this really big thing. But what I really remember was that we were walking in procession because his family were going to the crematorium, so we were walking in procession behind them. And I was walking with Tanya's sister, Changri, and it was really hot and we were holding hands. And I just remembered Changri being really upset and worried about her own brother, right? She sees this happening and she thinks about her own brother, but also she was just really angry. And what she said to me was, "Do you think they are satisfied now that he's dead?" And I think we have seen since Nadia's execution that they are not satisfied, that there will be more executions, that there are about 50 more people on death row, mostly men and 1 woman, who the state intends to execute, and they will not be satisfied. They will not be satisfied until they've executed this 50, and they will not be satisfied because as they are executing this 50, they will be sentencing more people who they want to execute, unless we as Singaporeans do something about it. Right? So they will never be satisfied, but we have the power to stop them. I think on that note, we would like to thank everybody for coming today, for sharing your thoughts, for signing up, and just for being here, being in this room, for speaking up and for caring. So now I'll hand over to Pooh.
Really, like when I first thought that it would be powerful to have the session framed as like victim impact statements, I imagined that there would be many family members, people on death row that we could persuade to be here and to share. And I think I wanna underline how the impact on them is that they can't be here. In all the conversations we've had with them, the thing that keeps coming up is that I can't face it, I can't talk about it, I can't talk to a room full of strangers about it, I can't relive it, it's already a nightmare every day. And you know, like, it's very difficult to describe how much it took from us and level to be here today as well. And I think there's something else to this too. Another layer to the story of impact is I can never stop noticing the difference between how Malaysian families respond and Singaporean families respond to the death penalty. And I think this is why all of our other freedoms are so fundamentally connected to the death penalty regime. You know, it gives me so much pain to see that the Malaysian families can feel anger when their loved ones are sentenced to death. But most Singaporean families are only allowed to feel shame. Like, you know, when you're facing so much injustice, the last dignifying possibility you have is to feel righteous anger. And Singaporean families are denied that. The number of times they've said, but what if I lose my job? What if the government comes after my family members? You know, but like the mosque says it's wrong. We're wrong. My loved one is wrong. I am wrong for wanting them to live. That is, there are no words for the violence of that. You know, there's the violence of the killing, of the murder, but the psychological violence of not even being allowed to feel indignation, to feel rage, to challenge, to speak up. Like, when the Malaysian families are, you know, just like so visceral in their anger, when they say, you know, your prime minister is drinking the blood of our sons. And it's the blood of our sons that flows as a river in your country because your politicians are so stone-hearted. And Singaporeans don't feel they have a right to say these things. It is not that they are different human beings. They just live under different regimes, and one has completely taken away our voices. And so I think we need to honor the absence in this room and why it is so, and how deep the stigma and shame in this country runs that they cannot even be here and trust that they will be held, and that they will be safe, and that they will be protected. I am fucking tired of going to funerals, okay? So we have to fight this harder. And together. So will you stand and chant with us as we close?